Hello, and welcome back to Zero Time for Editing, One Take YouTube. Today we are back in the world of anti-aliasing testing, but more specifically, gray offset. Both Chi2Box and Lychee offer settings for various gray offsets, and I was kind of curious after my last anti-aliasing test exactly what would happen if you went through the whole spectrum of them. So in this case, I used Lychee and used a 5 pixel 0 gray all the way to a 5 pixel 100% gray. And I only chose 5 pixel because I'd previously done anti-aliasing tests at 4 and 6, and I was just curious where 5 pixels would happen to land. So the 0 gray offset, which is supposed to be the smoothest, most gray spectrum, um, leaves a very smooth finish, although the dry brushing did pick out some ridges here. If you tilt it in the light, you can see just how smooth that actually is. I'm actually kind of impressed with the dry brushing. I actually picked any of that up because it feels like glass. Super smooth there. So obviously, smoothest, regardless of how many pixels used, is going to be the 0 gray. And this will tax the size of the file and your processing. So that was just kind of the curious test I wanted to see here. If you had a PC that was struggling with this, how far you could get away with it. Whereas the opposite end of the spectrum here, we have 100%. It's basically black and white. There's almost no gray here at this point, at which point you might as well not even use anti-aliasing. And this definitely has a very tactile texture. Dry brushing really picking that out. And as you can see in the shimmer here, it's awful. But if we just work our way down, you can kind of see where we eventually hit a sweet spot if you're into that sort of thing, where you can probably get away with a smaller file size and still achieve the results you want. That's 90. Now, spoiler, the first 50 or the last 50% are basically just garbage you don't want to use. But here's how they look. There's 80, 70. Getting smoother, but still a texture you can feel. You can even see it in the shimmer. All right, here is 60. 50. Getting better. 40. This is about the last point you probably want to go. It's just a tad bit of texture you can feel here in this one. Come on, focus. It's starting to disappear. Yeah, you can see it in the shimmer there. Little ripples in the pond. And now at 30% gray offset, here it's really starting to smooth. Now this you can't feel. This feels perfectly smooth. This is like glass. Oh, and if you're noticing, these are squished and stretched compared to my last anti-aliasing test because I don't think UV Tools liked me putting all of these files on, merging them into one plate. So I think it's squished to make them fit, which I don't think affected the anti-aliasing at all. Let's see, 5 pixel 20%. Here we go. Still very smooth. Good job dry brushing, somehow picking all these up. Yeah, you can see in that shimmer, like you really have to look to see those. And here's 10%. Oops, bump the camera. And back to 0. So if you're struggling with file size on things and you have to use anti-aliasing, it looks like you can get about 20% without too much noticeable degradation. Your mileage may vary. Start to see some ripples there on the periphery of 30, but I think once you pass 30% gray offset, you're starting to get into trouble here. Yeah, I would not use 40. So I'd stick with 30% and below. Obviously, if your machine can handle it and your file size is small enough, you probably just want to stick with 0. That should give you the smoothest, most gray gradient out there. Anyway, just thought that would be interesting to somebody. So have a good night.